If you find yourself struggling night after night to get deep, restful, restorative sleep, the kind where you wake up feeling energized and ready to tackle the day, I bet I know why. It's because you're not aligning your sleep habits and your wellness routines around your unique astrological blueprint when it comes to sleep. That's right. Your sleep needs are written in your birth chart. And by aligning your habits, your practices, especially around bedtime and your sleep environment, with what is written in your birth chart, you can optimize your sleep. You can get that deep restoration. And this is super important because we spend about a third of our lives sleeping. And so we want that experience to be positive, not stressful, not frustrating, not negative. And on top of that, sleep is the time when our bodies enter into a state of restoration and healing and detox. And it's also a time when our brains go into this state of processing everything that has happened throughout the day, processing information, retaining what you've learned, and also our brains go into a state of detox. And so when you're not sleeping deeply, when you're not getting consistent good sleep, your body is not restoring itself in the way that it was meant to, and your brain is not restoring itself in the way that it was meant to, and you are holding on to stress and toxicity that you don't need to be holding on to. This is going to cause a lot of problems, a ripple effect that impacts your physical and mental well-being. And so this topic is so important and so fundamental when it comes to health, wellness, and medical astrology. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Heather Eland. I'm a professional astrologer and educator with a master's degree in clinical psychology and a background in herbalism, mind-body therapies, and holistic health. And I'm super excited to present this topic because it really hits close to home. I struggled from insomnia for over 20 years of my life. It started in childhood around age 6 or 7, maybe even earlier than that. I'd have to go back and check with my parents because they were the ones that were impacted by this as well. And it didn't really resolve until my late 20s when I started to notice that if I shifted certain patterns, certain habits, certain behaviors throughout the day, and especially into the evening, to align with what I was seeing in my birth chart, I would get better sleep. I also tested this on my husband, who has had sleep difficulties on and off throughout his adult life, and who also has some difficult chart patterns around sleep that needed to be overcome and resolved. And when he's consistent with doing the things that help his unique chart type, he sleeps a lot better. And so this is what I want to teach to you and instill today. Now, that said, we're going to be focusing primarily on 12th house energy here in this particular video. That's not the entire story. And even with the 12th house, there are so many layers. And so if you truly want to optimize your sleep, make sure you check out my Celestial Self-Care Workshop, which is happening on January 31st of 2026. If you're watching when this is first coming out, you can join us live and ask your questions live. And if you're watching this later, you can watch the replay and ask your questions in the student community that you're going to have lifetime access to and get answers from myself and my expert medical astrology teaching assistants. And so that is a resource available to you. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. But for now, we're going to start with looking at some of the main chart patterns I see for people who struggle with sleep. And even if you are somebody who struggles with sleep partially due to lifestyle factors that you can't really control, like maybe you have young children or you have some sort of job where your schedule is kind of wonky and you work into the night, or you have a partner who has that type of schedule and it's disruptive, I've been there too, you can still harness the energy of your chart to maximize the sleep that you can get, even with those disruptions. And so that actually becomes even more important. So if you are in a phase of life where your sleep is going to be disrupted no matter what you do about it, you're going to want to make sure that the sleep that you can get is going to be the deepest, the best, the most refreshing, the most luxurious sleep that you can possibly have, even if it's just for a couple of hours at a time. And so again, this is going to be super important for everyone. But we're going to start with the people who just inherently have struggles with sleep, and that's a huge portion of the population. And there's going to be some overlap here in the significations that we'll talk about for insomnia and the significations that we've talked about in the past on my channel for things like anxiety, because insomnia is actually a symptom of generalized anxiety disorder. And so there is some comorbidity there is some overlap. And if you are somebody who is prone to anxiety, of course, you're going to be more prone to having sleep disturbances. But the first thing you're going to want to look at is what the heck is going on in your 12th house. So there are certain energies and planetary configurations in the 12th house that I've seen time and time again can be very disruptive to your sleep. The first and most predominant being having a Mars connection to your 12th house. Now, what I mean by that is if Mars is in your 12th house, if it's aspecting planets in your 12th house, if it's the ruler of your 12th house, if it's aspecting the ruler of your 12th house, or if by transit you're going through a period of time where Mars is transiting your 12th house, you are likely to struggle with sleep. Mars is a very active, very energized planet. And in the 12th house, which rules over our sleep, our dreams, our sleep quality, our rest and restoration, Mars is so disruptive. It goes against everything we need typically to get deep restorative sleep. It wants us to be awake and alert and doing things in the middle of the night when we shouldn't be. Mars also has a connection to our sympathetic nervous system through its rulership over the function of the adrenal glands and the stress hormone cortisol. When your cortisol is elevated late into the evening and into the night, you are not going to sleep well. It's not supposed to be that way. Your cortisol is just not supposed to be spiked at that time. And so this is a signal to your body that there is some sort of emergency or urgency. You're getting prepared to fight or flee. And you don't want that when your head hits the pillow and you're trying to get deep restorative sleep. So that Mars energy is going to be very problematic. Again, we'll talk more about what to actually do about this in celestial self-care. But for right now, just know that this is part of that energy. And again, we'll talk about this more too later in the video when we get into all of the planets in the 12th house. The second pattern I see in a lot of people's charts when they suffer from insomnia or disrupted sleep is going to be a Uranus connection. That indicates that your sleep pattern, habits, and schedule can be all over the place. Lots of ups and downs, very chaotic and erratic. And so again, you don't really want that. If you're trying to get consistent sleep where every single day you can rely on the fact that when your head hits the pillow, you are going to sleep deeply, which is what I actually am very lucky to have for the past several years. I know how much of a difference that makes. And so I want you to get that difference as well. That Uranus energy can be like a jolt of energy that can just throw things off kilter. And we'll talk about that in just a bit here when we get into all of the planets in the 12 houses as well. Another indicator that you'll see that can be very disruptive to sleep is often having the sun in the 12th house. Now, that doesn't always indicate that you're going to have insomnia, and it's usually not quite as bad as some of the other planetary energies, but this is a very specific one where your circadian rhythms can be thrown off for very specific reasons, especially if you are not getting the frequencies of light that your body needs through the sun and through like being outside and spending time in the sunrise, the sunset, and just in the daylight, either through circumstances or just not bothering to do that, or through the fact that maybe you live somewhere that's very cloudy or it's winter. These are all things that you have to consider if you have the sun in the 12th house. Usually people who have the sun in the 12th house, they tend to stay awake a little bit later than other people. They might not be up all night, but they tend to stay up and they tend to be sometimes night owls, but definitely not people that are early to go to bed. And that can throw off your circadian rhythms a little bit as well. So that sun energy I've seen. The other thing I've seen that's really challenging for sleep is going to be Pluto in the 12th house because Pluto can indicate nightmares and night terrors. It can indicate trauma around sleep or around darkness, or trauma that actually has occurred in the middle of the night that carries over into future experiences, so you have trouble settling down and sleeping. This can also be present if you have a ruler of the 8th house in the 12th or a ruler of the 12th house in the 8th. And so that's another consideration where sleep might be difficult because of this nightmare connection or these fears that could be coming up for you. This is another one that's big for night terrors and things like that as well. The final one I want to mention that I think is worth noting is Saturn. Saturn is a malefic planet. It's all about limitation and restriction. And I've seen Saturn in the 12th house literally be a restriction or a limitation on sleep or difficulties or challenges around sleep. So that could be a big part of it too, but we'll talk about exactly what to do about that in just a minute. And so these are only a few of many different things that we would look at. We wouldn't just look at the 12th house and the 12th house ruler. We would look at the chart holistically to understand all of your sleep needs. But this is a great starting point, and those are things to look at in your chart to see if, hey, maybe the reason that I've had insomnia my whole life is because there's something ingrained in my birth chart that I need to be conscious of, that I need to start working with instead of struggling against. That is the first step there, is just recognizing it and acknowledging it. Second step is, what the heck do we do about it? So this is where we get into the 12th house and the different planets in the 12th house and how they impact what you need to get deep restorative sleep. This will not be an all-encompassing list. For that, check out Celestial Self-Care. But again, we're going to give you enough to test it out. And when you test these things out, add one thing at a time from this list. So if you have 5 planets in the 12th house and I give you 15 different things to try, do not try them all at once. Try one thing at a time so you know if it's helping or making things worse, and make sure you give it at least 7 to 10 days to see if there's a difference. Ways of tracking this could be if you have some sort of wearable tracker like the Oura Ring, which I like because you can turn off the Bluetooth. It doesn't give you any EMFs or anything like that while you're sleeping unless you want it to, and even then it's pretty subtle compared to things like the Apple Watch, which do not wear an Apple Watch at night. That's not a good way to track what you're doing with sleep. That's not a good thing to do for your body in general, although I'm sure most of you know that. Another way is to just journal for the next 7 to 10 days after you implement and write down how you feel every morning, how you felt about your sleep. You know, did you feel like it took a long time for you to fall asleep? Just journal about how you feel when you wake up and your energy levels throughout the day. That is a very easy way to just know if you're feeling better or worse, if you're sleeping better or worse. And a good thing to do also is to give like a numerical rating to your sleep at the start. So like before you start the thing, what is your sleep rated from 1 to 10, just subjectively to you? If it's a 5, and then by the end of this 10 days, you're like, actually, it's like a 6 or maybe even a 7. That's going to be an indicator that things are working for you. And then you can either just keep going with that or add in something additional from this list. Now that I've said all of that, let's get into each of the planets in the 12th house and what that means for your sleep needs. If your sun is in your 12th house, this indicates that the main thing that you need to get good, restful, restorative sleep is natural sunlight. That means going outside during the day and getting sunlight on your skin and also in your field of vision through your retinas, because you do have this ability to sense different frequencies of light, and that helps regulate your circadian rhythm. That's the case for everyone, but for especially sun in the 12th house people, this is going to be the thing to focus on. Now, the best times to do this are going to be in the morning right at sunrise, to spend 15-20 minutes just sitting outside and allowing that natural light to pour over you, and to do it again at sunset, because we have a way of sensing these specific frequencies of light that are different at sunrise and sunset that tell us that the day is beginning and ending. You also want to make sure that you're getting sunlight during the actual daytime. And if you're not able to do that, you can supplement with synthetic forms of light, like those UV lights that people get when they have seasonal affective disorder. I have a friend who has one of those. She calls it her happy light because it boosts her mood and it helps to restore her circadian rhythms. The downfall of this is that most people who wear contact lenses or glasses are not aware of the fact that you are not getting natural sunlight into your retinas, because the lenses that you're wearing, and all corrective lenses nowadays, have UV light blocking filters in them. And there's no way to go around it. There's no way to not have them. I've tried. I wear contact lenses myself because my prescription is high. My glasses are super, super thick and they make my eyes look kind of silly. And so unless I consciously choose to go outside at the beginning and ending of my day before I put in my contact lenses and afterward, and take off my glasses and spend some time just looking around at all of the blurry things in my field of vision, I am not getting that natural UV light in my retinas. And so my brain is not processing that as being sunrise, sunset, or middle of the day in the same way that it would be if my eyes were completely naked. If that's the case for you, you need to make sure that you are having bare naked eyeballs outside in the morning and in the evening. And if your schedule does not allow for that, again, there are certain lights that you can purchase that will mimic the UV light at sunrise, sunset, and even midday. It's kind of a pricier option than just going outside, but for some people, you might have to do that just because of your lifestyle or where you live or the time of year, and that's completely okay. Another thing that we talked about in celestial nourishment is how the sun is connected to vitamin D, and having adequate levels of vitamin D is very important for regulating your circadian rhythms and your sleep-wake cycles, partly because vitamin D helps regulate your serotonin levels and your melatonin levels. And these are chemicals in your body that are very much involved in regulating your sleep and wake cycles as well as your mood. The best way to get vitamin D is through your skin, through going outside during a responsible time of day, not when it's, 110 degrees outside and it's midday and you're burning yourself. But again, morning, evening, that type of thing, just for 20 minutes can really give you a good boost. But you can also supplement vitamin D. And that's another way to look at how to regulate your sleep-wake cycles for people who have sun in the 12th house. If your moon is in the 12th house, you probably don't have a ton of difficulty sleeping. However, you probably also find that when the moon is full, you do have a little bit difficulty sleeping, or you sleep less, or you feel like you need less sleep, because your sleep cycle waxes and wanes with the moon. It goes through cycles just like the moon goes through cycles, and your needs will change and go through these cycles as well. People with moon in the 12th house tend to be big dreamers. They tend to get a lot of intuition and downloads through their dreams. Sometimes they're night owls because the moon in the 12th house can make you very deeply intuitive and creative at night, like when you should be sleeping. And a lot of this creativity can come through sleep. It can come through messages and visions and things that show up in your dream time. But some of it can come through, staying up and getting that inspiration, as long as you're not taking it too far. The moon in the 12th house is typically not one that's going to be problematic for sleeping unless you are going to bed emotionally charged. That old adage, never go to bed angry, that's going to be especially true for moon in the 12th house people. You want to make sure that any emotional triggers, emotional issues are resolved and put to bed, no pun intended, before you go to bed. And so that's going to be a big part of getting good quality sleep. Moon in the 12th house people, I've also seen, can be very good lucid dreamers. They're very good at dream work and manipulating their dream landscapes and things like that. And so dream time can be playtime when moon is in the 12th house. While Mercury in the 12th house did not make my list of the top most problematic configurations that I see with people who have insomnia and sleep disturbances, it's still pretty up there, especially if Mercury is in a fire sign or is in an aspect with some of the other planets we talked about, like Uranus or Mars. It can become very disruptive to your sleep because it causes your brain to become very, very active when you should be asleep. This is an energy of replaying conversations in your head, making plans and lists, thinking about things that you really do not need to be thinking about as your head hits the pillow and you're trying to go to sleep. This one is super important. So if you have Mercury in your 12th house, as I do myself, you're going to want to make sure that you are giving yourself ample time to turn off your brain. You want to downregulate your sympathetic nervous system. You want to stop thinking critically about things. You want to stop doing anything that's going to be overly mentally stimulating and getting your wheels turning too close to bedtime. For me, too close to bedtime is really within 3 to 4 hours of when I go to sleep. So I stop working. I can't work past a certain time or I will not sleep. I can't watch super crazy documentaries that really get me in these rabbit holes of thinking about things. I can't look at birth charts at night because I will literally have stress dreams about birth charts while I'm sleeping or while I'm trying to sleep. And so this is just an example. Not everyone's going to be the same, but really what you need to do is quiet your mind. You can do that in very mercurial ways, like through breath work. I also find journaling super helpful. So writing down anything that you need to get out of your head if your brain won't stop churning, even after you've taken that time to just do things that are mindless and that don't require a lot of mental activity for a couple hours before bed, you can definitely still have thoughts going on, especially if there's a lot going on in your life. And so you want to get it out and onto paper so you don't have to keep thinking about it. The other thing that helps is journaling about things that are really positive. So gratitude journaling right before bed. So it's the last thing that is on your mind before your head hits the pillow. You want that last thing that is on your mind to be not stressful and to be positive and uplifting and happy. You do not want to have communication devices anywhere near your bedroom. No cell phones in the bedroom. If you are a parent and you need it for like emergencies because your kid is with, your co-parent or something or whatever the reason, I would recommend getting a landline or making sure that that phone, even if you can hear it when it goes off, is going to be not visible. And using that mode where only certain calls come through, so calls from certain people, will be helpful as well. But you ideally don't have that in the bedroom. Do not put a TV in the bedroom. Do not put anything even symbolic of mental stimulation like books in your bedroom. You want all that out of there. That's going to be a big one if you're having trouble with Mercury in the 12th house. And so main things here, you have to turn off your brain, do something mindless for at least a couple hours before bed. You want to make sure that you are not bringing mental stress and strain into the bedroom. The upside of Mercury in the 12th house is that you probably do also have a very active dream life, and you probably get some pretty profound ideas and messages through your dreams. So again, going on that thread of Mercury, keeping a dream journal is going to be extra important for Mercury in the 12th house people. If you have Venus in the 12th house, lucky you, because Venus in the 12th house people tend to be pretty good sleepers. Venus is a benefic planet. It has to do with relaxation and harmony and tranquility and all of these really beautiful things that you want at bedtime. And so this is typically not problematic unless your Venus is doing something super weird. We'll of course talk about that in Celestial Self-Care if you do have a wonky Venus and you're having sleep issues. But for the most part, the average person who has Venus in the 12th house is going to sleep pretty soundly. You're going to have a pretty consistent, balanced sleep schedule. The only thing that I would say that could enhance it even further is that you need a very beautiful and aesthetically pleasing sleep environment, and the entire sensory experience could be really amplified for this placement if you are having struggles. And so something to think about is, how does your bed feel? How do your sheets feel? Could you increase the thread count or use a different fabric that feels better on your skin? What do your blankets feel like? What does your pillow feel like? What does it smell like in your bedroom? Should you use aromatherapy at bedtime? Do you need some sort of soothing sounds to help lull you into a sleep? The other thing that you can really look at is sleeping with a partner. So people who have Venus in the 12th house, they typically prefer to be with someone while they are sleeping. So that could be a romantic partner. Maybe Venus is the ruler of your 6th house and instead it's pets and you need to have animals with you to sleep well. But there is that need for companionship, and that could be something that could enhance your sleep as well. People with Mars in the 12th house are typically the ones that are going to have the greatest struggles when it comes to sleep. And those struggles can wax and wane and go on and off depending on your personal habits and what's going on in your day-to-day life, especially when you're undergoing a lot of stress. Because as I mentioned earlier in this video, Mars rules over the sympathetic nervous system through its connection with the function of the adrenal glands and the stress hormone cortisol. Your cortisol levels need to be regulated using certain adaptogenic herbs, using certain nervine herbs, especially before bed, can really help to downregulate the sympathetic nervous system and help you sleep restfully. My own husband has this placement, and over the past couple of weeks, just as I'm leading up to doing this video and this workshop, he was having trouble sleeping, and we were a little bit perplexed because he wasn't under any extra stress, and we were having him do a lot of the Mars things that I'm about to tell you about here, and it was helping a little bit but not solving the problem. Come to find out, when we went to our doctor, a supplement that he was taking and that he had been taking for too long had elevated and spiked his cortisol levels. Once we figured that out, removed the supplement and started adding in more of the things that reduce cortisol, everything leveled out and he started sleeping really deeply and really well the past few nights. And so that was a blessing. But it just goes to show you that you want to look at hidden sources of stress and cortisol within the body. It might not always be obvious. You also want to make sure that you're getting a lot of really intense physical activity during the day. That Mars energy needs to be released during the day through consistent physical activity and sometimes very intensive physical activity, depending on what sign your Mars is in and what else it's doing, in order to prepare your body properly for deep restorative sleep. The other thing that tends to happen with Mars in the 12th house, in addition to just making you very active and awake at night and having trouble sleeping, is that movement disorders in sleep can be a problem. You might find yourself sleepwalking, tossing and turning, twitching, yelling out in the middle of the night even. Like, there's so many things that can happen with that Mars energy. And so finding a way to get all of that kinetic energy out of you, getting all of that movement out of you during the day can kind of fatigue your body and your muscles enough where it won't be as big of a problem. For Mars in the 12th house, the color red is going to be an important key here. And so making sure you're using blue blockers. This is a good one actually for Sun in the 12th house too, but making sure you're using blue blockers when you're on the computer and doing things like red light therapy or an infrared sauna can be very helpful. Sweating and heating your body, not right before bed because you are prone to getting really hot at night, but during the daytime, sweating and getting your body temperature elevated at some point is going to be very helpful for you getting that deep restorative sleep as well. Jupiter in the 12th house is another one that is not super problematic. Jupiter is known as the great benefic for a reason, and it creates an area of luck, good fortune, and ease wherever it touches in the birth chart. And so Jupiter in the 12th house makes it a little bit easier for you to get good quality sleep. If anything, there can be more of a spiritual or philosophical connection to sleep that you can deepen through dream work, dream exploration, learning how to lucid dream, tapping into different philosophies and spiritual practices around sleep. All of these things are very much indicated for Jupiter in the 12th house, but you're not going to have a lot of issue, and there's not really a ton of specifics that I can give you for what you're going to want to do to sleep better unless you have other things going on with your Jupiter, like difficult aspects or the sign placement is an issue, which again we'll talk about in celestial self-care. Jupiter in the 12th house people, they do tend to be deeply spiritual. They do tend to have a very solid spiritual practice going on behind the scenes, and that can be merged with that experience of sleep. So your spiritual practice, your spiritual exploration doesn't have to stop when your head hits the pillow. Saturn in the 12th house is another one that I indicated might be a little problematic. It can show limitation, restriction, or challenge around sleep. This one is where you really need a solid sleep habit or a sleep routine, where you are doing the same thing in the same order every single night, going to bed at the same time, and doing that consistently. So there is self-discipline, repetition, consistency, and routine that is needed for you to sleep and sleep well. Saturn in the 12th house can also indicate fear. It could indicate fear of the dark. It can indicate nightmares. It can indicate difficulty around sleep due to some sort of fear and anxiety. It can also indicate for some people that you sleep better in isolation. For others, it could be a fear around solitude and isolation at night while you're sleeping. And so it really depends on some of the other indicators that might inform which end of that spectrum that you'll fall within. But definitely, this is one where you could have more nightmares. You could have difficulty with the dreams that are occurring at night. So if nightmares and very literal, like scary things that are happening while you're sleeping are a problem for you, one of the things that you can incorporate into your routine is adding positive energy, adding a positive mindset, adding positive thoughts, visualizing things that are really happy and very calming and very uplifting to your brain, body, and nervous system. That is going to be key. So spending time in meditation and visualization and really putting yourself in a positive emotional state as opposed to a fearful or a pessimistic state prior to hitting the bed. This is also one where I've noticed people having trouble with dream recall. People who say that they don't dream or they don't remember their dreams often have a Saturn connection to the 12th house or Saturn in the 12th house. And so for you, part of the process for getting the most out of that sleep time, the 1/3 of your life that you're spending asleep and dreaming, you're going to want to improve your dream recall. So doing things like dream journaling. Even if you're someone who thinks you don't dream, which actually isn't a thing, you're just not recalling your dreams, but you will wake up with some sort of feeling or sensation or emotion or color even. Whatever it is that pops into your head the moment that you wake up, write it down, and that will eventually expand to having entire thoughts, entire experiences, potentially even remembering parts of your dreams. And so that's something that can be a fun exercise that can deepen your connection to sleep and dreaming for people who have Saturn in their 12th house. People with Uranus in the 12th house do tend to have very erratic sleep schedules. They tend to wake up a lot during the night. They tend to take a lot of naps. They tend to go to bed at all sorts of random hours and times. They tend to wake up at all sorts of random hours and times. And their circadian rhythms are just all over the place as a result of this. This is also partially because nighttime and dream time and sleep time is when you get a lot of inspiration and where you'll get these random surges and bursts of energy. And so you definitely want to capitalize on that and keep maybe a journal near your bed where you can write down your ideas and your inspirations. But if you're really struggling with sleeping because you have to fit into normal society, maybe you have a 9-to-5 job where you can't just sleep randomly whenever you want and wake up randomly whenever you want, you're going to want to start to create a habit of consistency. So even though you have this Uranus energy that wants to kind of go with the flow and maybe needs some flexibility when it comes to your sleep schedule, if you're really struggling, you're going to want to start to be more disciplined, have habits and routines around sleep. One of those habits is going to need to be getting rid of electronics prior to bed. And by electronics, I mean even light bulbs and lamps. So people who have Uranus in the 12th house, they tend to be very electrically sensitive when it comes to their sleep and their circadian rhythms. So big thing, the elephant in the room, of course, is your Wi-Fi router. We know through research that exposure to Wi-Fi disrupts your melatonin cycles and messes up your sleep. It's associated with increased insomnia and increased depression. And this is something that we just all have in our houses. And even if we don't have them in our houses, like me, who has everything hardwired, you are getting unwanted radiation from all of your neighbors. And so first and foremost, turn off your own router at night. If for some reason you can't do that because you have family members that are up and wanting to use the internet or something like that, you need to make sure that the router is nowhere near your bedroom. And there are also different ways that you can take precautions to kind of dissipate the electromagnetic frequencies. There are different devices you can use. Some are better than others. So do your research on that. to kind of make things a little bit better so you're not getting quite the exposure. But the biggest thing, the best thing to do is to just completely turn it off. If you live in a big city, you might want to get some EMF protective clothing, like through Spiro Gear or some other reputable source, so that way you can diminish the effects of EMFs. They have even like these curtains that you can put around your bed, like a canopy, that have silver in them that are supposed to help reduce the electromagnetic frequencies that you're exposed to while you're sleeping. That could be something that you could think about as well. Grounding while you're sleeping, as long as you are actually taking the grounding mat and the grounding cord and plugging it directly into the actual earth and making sure it's in a spot that's not connected to something else weird that you might be getting frequencies from. That can be super helpful for people who have Uranus in the 12th house. But EMFs and electricity, those are going to be things that are going to really disrupt your sleep and that are going to keep you wired. And you're not going to be able to get the sleep that you need, and you're not going to get that rest and restoration that you need. Another thing is removing electronics from the bedroom. So you do not want a computer in your bedroom. You do not want your phone in your bedroom if you can avoid it. I recommend getting a landline if you have to have a phone in your bedroom. I definitely would not put a TV in your bedroom. Another thing you can do is at night, maybe like an hour or two before you fall asleep, switch to candlelight. Read a book by candlelight, like literally. If you are struggling really hard with sleep, have a routine where at a certain time, the lights go out, you light some candles, there's no devices, you don't have all these EMFs, the Wi-Fi router is turned off, and you are just doing something that does not require electronics before you go to bed. That's going to be really helpful for you as well. And if you're able to do it, give yourself some wiggle room with your sleep schedule. So don't make it too wild, because that's the danger with this Uranus 12th house that I've seen, where people are just all over the place and then you're just never getting adequate sleep. But make sure that you maybe have some wiggle room within a certain time frame, like within an hour before bed. Like this is my bedtime. It's this range of 1 to 2 hours, and my wake up time is this range of 1 to 2 hours. And if I am at the narrow end of those ranges, I have this time that's designated for maybe a quick nap during the day. Like, give yourself structure, but also flexibility within that structure. Again, if you are lucky enough that your lifestyle allows for it. Neptune in the 12th house people typically are another one that don't have a ton of difficulty sleeping, but they are very sensitive. And so you want to make sure that your sleep environment is set up to mitigate those sensitivities. Small changes in energy, small changes in scent, small changes in temperature, small changes in the fabric and texture of your bedding even can cause you to inadvertently not have good sleep. It's kind of like you're not really aware of what's causing it, but these subtle shifts in what's going on in your sleep environment can make a massive difference. And because the shifts are so subtle, or you might not even know about them, it can be hard to pinpoint exactly what's causing the disruption. And so you want to make sure that your environment is set up in the same way every time, and that everything feels really, really good, and that you're not having a lot of synthetic fragrances or things that are super toxic in your bedroom. You want to make sure that the actual materials that are used for your bedding, especially your sheets, are going to be cotton, especially organic cotton would be best, or that they don't have synthetic dyes. You want to make sure that everything in your environment is super non-toxic and is super non-abrasive and is super controllable, so that way it's consistent every time, because it's those subtle differences that tend to matter. You're also going to be a deep dreamer, and you're probably going to get a lot of really incredible intuition and even prophetic messaging through your dreams. So you're another one that really needs to make sure that you write down your dreams, keep a log of what's gone on during dream time, because that's going to come back around and help you later on down the line. Another thing that can be very helpful and useful and nourishing to people who have Neptune in the 12th house, regardless of whether or not you have trouble sleeping, is doing some form of meditation right before bed or as you're drifting off to sleep. That could be in the form of something that's more loose and more casual, or it could be a guided sleep meditation. Any of those things can be very helpful. And especially if they're putting positive and relaxing imagery into your mind as you drift off to sleep or before you drift off to sleep, that's going to go a long way, because not only are you going to sleep better, but you're going to have dreams that are going to be more positive, and you're going to wake up feeling emotionally and physically much more recharged and ready to take on your day, much more optimistic, because you are so sensitive to these things in that dream state and in that pre-sleep state, and also right when you wake up. You don't want to wake up and just do something really jarring and just jump into the day. You need a period of integration, because you are between worlds when you wake up from your sleep, and it's not the same as everyone else. Like, you actually really need a transition period, or it's going to feel like you're still asleep or dreaming, or you're not quite right for the entire rest of the day. And finally, for Pluto in the 12th house, I mentioned before that Pluto in the 12th house can be associated with nightmares and night terrors. This is an energy where a lot of deep emotional intensity, especially from past life experiences or experiences that you're not conscious of, can come up in the night through your dreams, through your sleep. This is also where actual real lived trauma from this lifetime and this experience can impact your ability to sleep, either through some sort of PTSD, or because maybe something really traumatic or difficult happened at night. And even if it's not in your conscious awareness every night, it's stuck with you. And so this is an energy where definitely working through past traumas and doing something like psychotherapy, or if there is a past life connection to your sleep disturbance, because something really traumatic that you're not able to tap into might be affecting you, that's not in your conscious knowledge base or experience. You could even do something like hypnosis and past life regression to try to suss out the roots of that. The main thing though is getting to the core of what is causing this, so that way you can have an awareness of it and you can start working on and working through it. Another thing that you really need if you have Pluto in the 12th house is a feeling of safety while you're asleep, a feeling of security while you're asleep. You need to feel that you are in control of your environment, you are in control of your experience, you are in control of the situation, even though you are in this vulnerable state where typically you lack control because you are asleep, you're unconscious, you don't really know what's going on. So there is a need to make sure that your sleep environment feels safe and secure, to make sure that the entire experience feels controlled, feels like it's within your control. And so taking measures to make sure that you feel protected and you feel like you can protect yourself and you feel like you're in this safe little bubble at night, that is going to go a long way, because part of the reason that some people struggle when they have Pluto in the 12th house is because there's this feeling of lack of control. There's this feeling of lack of safety because of that lack of control. And so that's something that needs to be addressed in order to get deep, restful sleep. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it, subscribe to my channel, and share this with a friend who could use a little help when it comes to their sleep. And if you really want to hone in on how to get deep, restorative, restful sleep with all of the different nuances, all of the different tips, all of the different practices that work for your specific chart to get to the bottom of what's causing this disruption, make sure you sign up for Celestial Self-Care. And this workshop isn't just about sleep, because in order to really get that big reset that your body and your mind needs, you're going to want to make sure that you are working on regulating your nervous system in a way that works for your body and your unique astrological blueprint. So you're not just doing a bunch of random self-care rituals and practices that you saw some influencer tell you about on Instagram. You want to do the things that work for your nervous system and your body. When your nervous system is calm and regulated, sleep will come easily, sleep will come naturally. That is another key component. And when your sleep is deep and restorative and recharging you, your nervous system is going to be more balanced. Your sympathetic nervous system is going to be downregulated. That's that fight or flight response. And you're going to enter more easily into a parasympathetic rest and restoration state, not just at night, but throughout the entire day, throughout your entire life. And so in Celestial Self-Care, we're going to teach you everything you need to know to do that for yourself. And these practices are not going to take up all of your time. This is a 90-minute workshop that's going to show you small things that you can start building and adding to your routine in very little increments every single day that will just flow really naturally, and over time, you will see a big difference in how you feel, and especially in how your nervous system reacts to different stressors in your environment. So, again, I'm super excited for this. The link is down in the description below, and I hope to see you in class. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, everyone.